Today I'm going to review a test indicator I got off eBay reluctantly. This is a 5/10 meter. Each tick is half a thousandth. The total range is 30 thousandths, and I think it does 2 revolutions about. It comes with a little box and a little piece of paper that basically has the usual Chinese font. Right, this is a $15 meter, so I wonder how good it could be. In fact, I bought it back in September, but I just didn't believe in it, and until now I couldn't test it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this meter, and we're going to put it over here on the surface plate, and we're going to get out some gauge blocks and see if it can do what supposedly it can. Let's see if it actually can do half a thousandth. See if it can, if there's imperceptible quality issues. And then later on today I have a fancy Brown Sharp meter. So this is $15, and the one that's coming, which is I believe is I think it's a tenths meter. So this is 5/10, and the one I'm going to compare it to is just like 100 millionths kind of indicator. Let's just line them up and compare. This is $15, the other one's like $250, $230, something like that. Okay, so I'm going to get some gauge blocks out and see what we can make happen. By the way, this is one of the small Noga stands. There's like a $30 cheapo stand that you can get, which has a whole bunch of clunky dials, but this is the one that's got a single knob. You can hardly see it here, but it has a single knob that adjusts tension on all the joints except for this one down here. Okay, so we're set up here. Got it set to create sort of a minimum moment situation. Now, I got these gauge blocks yesterday, and as you can see from the cardboard construction, shipping didn't go very well. But, you know, for 80 bucks, I mean, you have to understand these, back in, I think, World War II, maybe World War I, like, I believe the U.S. specifically brought Johansson. They needed like some sets of gauge blocks, and the first set of Joe blocks was worth like a high-end engineer's salary. That's how much it cost, and I bought these for like 90 bucks with shipping. So how can you complain? Right, so let's start off. I'm going to do a 1 inch, wipe this off. So I'm going to set this so the needle's loaded. I'll bring you down in a second. Right, and then I'm going to take a 90 thousandths gauge block. So anyway, so this is the 0.9, and then I'm going to get 1. This is actually, we'll do a 1 and 5/10. This is point. So this, when I stack this on the 0.9 inch, the 900 thousandths block, it'll be 500 thousandths taller than the 1 inch block. Right. So I'm just following the NIST standard method, is to use some, I think, kerosene, a drop of kerosene, and then wipe it off. And of course their procedure is very, very strict in the sense that you are minding the temperature. And I'm going to mess up the temperature with these, but alright, so I'm going to put it on the edge, pressing pretty hard, making sure it's nice and flat, and as I slide it across, I'm pressing down real hard, and there's a certain feel to it. And then, I mean, you can ring these much easier, but the ringing gap, like the additional space of this ringing gap, depends on your technique. So I haven't done this enough to have a good technique, so I'm just kind of trying to follow the procedures that I've read about. Okay, so good enough, right? Alright, so now I've got this set up. Let me bring it in a little closer. So the difference between these two blocks should be 5/10. It should be one full tick on the meter. So first I'm going to really set this right on. I think I need to bring you closer. Okay, so what you're seeing here is we're on the 1-inch gauge block right now. And I've zeroed in the meter. Be careful not to. So the meter is zeroed in, and I'm tapping on the base to make sure that I get any jankiness of the meter under control. And so if I switch to the other gauge block, so remember this is supposed to be 5/10 more, and if I go from here, so we're pretty solidly on that line, not perfect, but when I go there, it jumps. But see that? It doesn't come back all the way. But if I tap, now it does. So what I've noticed is that this meter is, if you're under control and going slowly, it's basically fine. Mostly. Oh, sorry, I was running the corner into it like that. So you know there it didn't go up, but if I tap on it, it's fine. Now I'm going back to the 1-inch block. Alright, so basically what we can see from this is that there is a certain level of jankiness involved. Here it's jumping almost 2 divisions. The stand is not ideal, it's not super rigid. See there, we're moving more, but I don't know if I'm getting like an air film. So I would say, like from an amateur machinist point of view, like for $15, this is pretty amazing. But from a professional machinist viewpoint, I think this would be so freaking annoying. Here, let me set up some more. Let me set up like a 10th gauge block and see how that looks. Actually, let's do, instead of doing a smaller increment than what we have a full tick for, I'm going to set up like maybe like a 5/1000ths gap, right? So that should be, you know, from 0 to 5, that kind of situation. Alright, I'll bring you back in a second. So once again, I'm going to clean out this block. Can't remember if I used this before, but well, I'll tell you, when I clean them the first time, there's black grit and stuff on here. Probably sawdust and oil and stuff like that. So same procedure. You can feel the resistance to it sliding. Like right now, it's really, I'm squeezing pretty hard, and I can move it. With some difficulty. So that's rung on there pretty hard. Alright. So normally we'd let this, put some solvent on and let it cool off and be in your instrument room and your metrology room, but that's not what we have going on here, so we'll have to skip that. Okay, so I'm going to put this on a dial. We'll bring you in a second, but I'm going to put this on a dial, or on a tick, like checking for parallax, and then I'm going to go onto this. This should be 5 thousandths higher. So we should go exactly from one tick to another. And as I'm doing this, what I'm seeing is if I go fast and I run into this bump, what happens is the needle goes past its point and it doesn't settle back to the correct measurement. But if I sneak up on it and just slide over, so this is sort of a speed bump effect. You hit a speed bump and you go up, but it doesn't come down all the way. So then when I go slowly, it's right on there. Alright, let me bring you in. Okay, so here we go. Here's a better view. So we're on the 1-inch gauge block, and I've got you about straight on, so there's no parallax. Now if I go slow, we get 5 thousandths, which is what you'd expect, where this 0.9 and 0.105. That's fine, right? But if I go too fast, the needle doesn't settle on the 0.5. So now if I tap this, it kind of settles back a little bit. If I go slow, it's right on the money. So to me, I'm just thinking about the mechanics and damping factors and stick slip within the meter, and obviously the answer is there is some. I suspect the fancy Brown Sharp meter has virtually none. I bet it has instantaneous response and it doesn't stick like that. So even if I go medium slow, I can get it to go past, right? But, dang. Sorry, we gotta go head on to get this measurement right. So, a little bit tricky with the glare and everything, but so it's fast, and this is gradual. So when I move the gauge block, there's no appreciable movement on the dial. So let's do the same thing, but let's do it for maybe let's do this probably. So we got 1 and then 0.9, and then on the 0.9 let's stack. Probably let's do 20 thousandths. So here we got 0.120. Alright, I'm gonna bring this up off camera and then we'll do the same comparison on here and see what we get. Alright, so we got 20 thousandths on this, so 1 inch and 1 inch and 20 thousandths. I'm going to do a comparison. The reason for doing this comparison is that the way that we approximate errors in measurement is that we say the error is a certain percentage of the value, right? So like if we stay very near 0, this meter is, the error is just very, very small. But as we start going full range, like we're going to go 5, 10, 15, 20, 20 thousandths over that range, the errors add up, and it'll be more obvious what the errors are. So in the other tests that we did, we're testing both for the accuracy of the tick marks. Like, in other words, if we actually move the needle, if we move the probe like at 5/10, does it actually move one tick on the face? And the answer is basically yes, mostly. And then we tried it for 5 thousandths, which gives you a better idea. I guess it's very similar to the first test, except that the value is bigger, so it's more obvious what you're doing. And then in this case, what we're doing is we're checking for accumulating errors over the full range of the instrument. So, oops, I just knocked the corner of that. Let me just get this back to normal. Okay, so we're going to go, so 5, 10, 15, 20 thousandths. We should be on that 10 mark. Got a little work to do here. Now if I shift back to the other side, I think I'm messing up. Okay, so well, that's not very good. So you can see some error creeping in there. Over 20 thousandths, it looks like it's off by 1,000th. So when we were doing the 5/10, it didn't look like exactly one tick. It was close, but not quite. And then the 5 thousandths looks pretty good, but this is not looking so good. Let's also check with, so this is 120 thousandths. Let's do it with 110 thousandths just to see. It should be, we should be off by like half a thou, right? Okay, let me set that up and I'll bring it back. Alright, so that's 1 inch. Come back. Yeah, it's coming back. Okay, so this should be pressed down a little bit so we don't get an air film. So we would expect it to be right on the money. Oh, it's not bad. That's not bad. So what we're learning here is that, well, we're going to have to go back and check the 120 because I may have messed that up. I don't know. This is like right on the freaking money. So let's see. Sorry, we've got to deal with glare and parallax here. So that is straight on, and then this is pretty much straight on. Look at that. So if I go slowly, it's just right on that tick. If I go fast, it goes a little past it. So this is sort of the quasi-static version. So yeah, looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to do the 120 again just to be sure. Okay, I'm back with the 120 thousandths. Sorry, 20 thousandths versus 1 inch. So you would expect it to go from 5 to the other 5. but now it's reading over, so I don't really understand. Sometimes if I press down, get better readings. Like I'm maybe, yeah, I'm in the same spot on the surface plate. So I don't know what's happening here. Yeah, before it was 2000s under, I think. No, it's, oops. Just make a little adjustment here. Yeah, it's off by a full thousandth. All right, I'm going to check it with the one of the. Okay, I wonder. It's possible it could be a gauge block, but I wonder if that gauge block is marked wrong or something. Seems unlikely. Anyway, I'm going to try like a 125. See what that looks like. Okay, this is an identical setup, but in this case I've got a 1 inch and a 1/25 thousandths block. So should expect to go all the way to 0. Oh, but geez, it's off. Alright, well, this looks like it's pretty trustworthy when you're in the in the normal range. I mean, honestly, who's measuring 30 thousandths or 25 thousandths with a test indicator, right? Yeah. It's off by 1.5 thou at 25 thousandths. Okay, well, we're definitely out of the range of what this is advertised for, so maybe we should be like tolerant of the error. What is that anyway? What percentage? Let's see. Out of 30 thousandths. Sorry, 25 thousandths. That would be 6%. I guess that's not so bad. 6% error when you're way out of a usable range. Yeah, that's probably acceptable. I think the main issues for this is just the overall jankiness of the needle, the needle motion and the dynamics of it. But let's see, I'm going to compare this to a nicer meter, or a nicer indicator, so we'll see how that turns out. Okay, so this is it. It's a Brown Sharp BesTest. This is the 50 millionths indicator. Packaging is identical, but the price, instead of being $15, is like $230, something like that. Get the indicator loaded here. Yep, this one is, it's so much more sensitive. That's interesting. I don't know if I get my stand tightened up better or something. Seems way less twitchy. I mean, it's more twitchy when I'm, turning the knob. So the travel on this is only like 8 thousandths. It's like, so that's 1 inch. This is a 1/10 taller. So there's 1 inch. And that, let me see. One, two, three, four, five divisions absolutely on the nuts. Yeah, so I guess more money equals more quality. Let's see the dynamics of that. See how that bounces around? If I go quasi-static, gets a lot. There's a lot of motion. All right, here we go. So, as you can see, it's not. We're off by about half division up from 0. Let me get you. Remove the parallax. Okay, so now I'm going to move it on up. Basically, I'm going to move it up 5/10. Huh, that's not as crisp as the first time. Oh, look at that. Okay, so it's almost one major tick up. And then when I come over here, it's about the same major tick up. So I'm pressing down a little bit on the gauge block. It looks like we're on that first. Sorry, I'm like looking at. Yeah, it's kind of on that one tick, and then it comes up to the 6. Yeah, so it's right there. You can see the response, like the dynamic response, the quasi-static response of the other meter. You know, in other words, if you go slow, it seemed pretty stable. But with this one, it's just everything in there is more free to move, and there's all the spring constants and everything is set up so it just reacts the way you want it to. Okay, well, I guess it's a little too bad, I guess, that I don't know. This is kind of like a pro and a con. The $15 meter isn't, or the $15 indicator isn't bad. It's just, you know, it's just not as nice as what you get for another $250. So, I mean, obviously it's best to have everything, but if you can only afford one, you know, that other meter, the other indicator is just fine. Yeah, if you can only afford one, the $15 indicator is actually a reasonable solution. Alright, here we're going to do the same thing. So this is 1 inch, and this is 1 inch and a tenth. So 100 millionths. Okay, so that's 0, and that's a tenth. Okay, once again 1 inch. Do you see that one tick? So the small ticks are 50 millionths. So you can see that, so each tick is 50 millionths, right? You see at the bottom of the gauge. It's each minor tick is 50 millionths. So 2 ticks is a tenth. Anyway, that's pretty cool. And once again, you know, the dynamics. See, I'm actually going pretty slowly, but I don't know what's going on there. Is there a... Oh, it's a valley. Yeah, there's a valley between... Yeah, see, it's less now. Alright, there you have it. Let me do like 5 thousandths, which is kind of the range of the meter. The range of the meter is 8 thousandths. So let me do like 5, because I preloaded it a tiny bit, so I don't want to run it past its limit. But let's just see what that looks like. Alright, so if you look, so this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 thousandths around the dial. So we want to. What I've done is I've lifted it up off the gauge blocks. Oops. So what we're going to do is we're going to preload it for like. Sorry, I should turn the camera off and do this, but we're going to preload it to 1,000th. Okay, now I'm going to drag it up. So this is me dragging it up over 5 thousandths. Huh. Okay, so that's that. Now, once more. Okay, so we're almost, let's see, 1, 2, 3 divisions up. Let's go slow, back to 0. Okay, so almost 4. I think that's, I would call that 2/10. So, let's see, 2/10 divided by 5. That's a 4% error over, you know, a large part of the range. But I mean, let's face it, you know, this is more for comparing, right? So, and generally speaking, you don't want to use your 50 millionths indicator where thousandths are concerned. So, alright, well, that's my little review of the fancy dancy Brown Sharp, which, by the way, I made do without for many years, and then this $15 Weebay type meter indicator. Alright, well, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed.